So yes, I'm the Chief Technology Advisor, or should I say I was the Chief Technology Advisor in IDA until last Tuesday. I'm now the Director of Technology and Innovation in the Harbour Innovation Campus, and I'll talk about that later. But first of all, I guess for anybody that doesn't know who the IDA are, we're the government agency responsible for foreign direct investment into Ireland. So about 300 staff, a couple of hundred around the world, 19 offices. And the sole objective is to create jobs in Ireland. My role within the IDA as Chief Technologist, and it's an open role at the moment. If anybody's interested in working for a great agency, there's 3 positions there at the moment to be filled for advisors. But the role consisted of mainly 2 parts. So obviously, in dealing with multinationals, I would present out what the Irish ecosystem looks like from a tech perspective, tech and innovation perspective. So dealing with like anybody from a small born on the internet company over in San Francisco to companies over in Taiwan. It's nearly the same message, to be honest with you. You're kind of like presenting what the ecosystem looks like, what tech companies are here are in Ireland, what they're doing, what the innovation ecosystem looks like, the research environment in Ireland, academic, graduate skills, etc. And that was kind of like the first part of it, the most obvious part of the role. Really interesting, lots of fun. The second part is you're also a technology advisor working in a sales and marketing agency for Ireland. So I've to take one of the jobs, which is really interesting, is to take global megatrends, whether it be AI, I'll talk about them in a little while, Internet of Things, and wrap them and pack them in a way that people who work in sales and marketing know how to speak about them competently. And I'll get into that in a little while. Today I'm going to talk about global macro trends in innovation. So what we're seeing and what's happening in Ireland. And why it's happening in Ireland. Kind of like a little definition of what innovation is. It's 7 little words, it's really simple. But also the whats, the whys, and hows. The supports in Ireland. So the hard and soft support. So I apologise. I know very well the foreign direct investments, the multinational supports that we have. Enterprise Ireland, Irish companies, not so well. But I know IRDG, even in the book that's on the seats there, have a lot of information about all the supports that are available to everybody. And then I'll just give a little bit of an update about my current role, my new role in Ireland's newest innovation campus. Oh yeah, and by the way, feel free to tweet. AI Ireland is all around the AI initiative that we're working on at the moment. I'll explain it in a while. Harbour Campus, new place, why Ireland, and that'll be picked up by IDA. Okay, so what's happening from a macro perspective in innovation? Over the past 4 years, what we've seen is kind of interesting. There's been a kind of like a move from research and development. Traditionally, corporates keep research and development and innovation close to their headquarters. But what we've seen over the past 3 or 4 years, especially in Silicon Valley and different locations around the States, and I'll use America as the kind of like example, innovation they've been looking at alternative locations because it's becoming super expensive to do work in these places. So if you look at Austin there, so your average software engineer in Austin is makes $195,000 a year. It's pretty expensive. Similarly, San Francisco, the Bay Area is $132,000, and that's for your senior software engineer. It's not even people working in research, development, and innovation. So companies are kind of like, okay, it's kind of expensive to do innovation in these spaces. Where else around the world has kind of got the talent, has kind of like got the environment to do this? So they're looking at Ireland, and we've seen kind of like an increase in investment coming into Ireland because, well, that's one reason. But also the average salary of a senior software engineer in Dublin is 60,000 euros, which is comparatively speaking a lot more affordable. Another reason for investment into Ireland, and if you've heard any of IDA's kind of like normal pitches, it's availability of talent. Village people here. But there's a really good story. I know Marie Wallace will be talking about IBM later on, but IBM has a really fantastic story in terms of their journey in Ireland. So they're one of the oldest tech companies to come to Ireland. They came here 62 years ago. When they came here, they worked on like low-skill manufacturing jobs, the assembly of machines, etc. Today, IBM employ their highest number of software engineers outside of the States in Ireland. So they've got close to 2,000 software engineers based in Ireland, and they're working on cutting-edge technologies, cognitive computing, advanced analytics, and even on their Watson, their AI platform as well. So it's a really great story as a demonstration of pedigree in technology in Ireland, but that story has been replicated across multiple companies as well. So a couple of weeks ago, Microsoft launched their new campus out in Sandyford, 40+ million spent on their buildings, looking at increasing their workforce there. Accenture a couple of years ago launched their dock in town. So there's a really nice demonstration of kind of like research, development and innovation and integrity, but confidence and credibility happening in Ireland. I think this first number is really interesting. 130,000 people are employed in the tech sector directly in Ireland. So last year, 2017, was the first year that we overtook agriculture. So Ireland's known as an agrarian society for years and years and years. Finally, technology has overtaken agriculture, which is an interesting stat. 15,000 people directly working in-house RD&I, so that's 7.5% of people working in tech work and innovation. Again, it's really topical at the moment and really important. The whole fact, all the news with Brexit at the moment, there's a ton of uncertainty over in the UK. I think, as far as I know, Ireland is the most European, or we're the most happy to be part of the European Union. And it's really important, especially for companies looking to access H2020 funding, so European funding for research, development and innovation. There's obviously European funding there, but also access to the talent pool from Europe as well. And this is a nice one as well. Proportionally, Ireland has the third highest international workforce in Europe. So 15% of Ireland's workforce today is international. Interesting stat, especially when it comes to innovation, and I'll mention in a little while. When you're innovating, when you're doing research and development, you want to have multiple minds, multiple people, multiple cultures, multiple everything around the table, because that's how you come up with good solutions. So it's kind of like it's a really interesting melting pot of talent and capability in the country. Anecdotal evidence, I guess, from working with multinationals across the world that have operations in Ireland. It's come back on multiple occasions that staff retention is pretty good here in Ireland. Now, whether that's down to the culture of the company, whether it's down to Irish culture, loyalty, etc., it could be a combination of all of them. But companies that move to Ireland say that they've better staff retention in Ireland than they would, say, for example, if you look at San Francisco, an issue they have over there at the moment. If you're top of your game in software engineering and you're in Google, you've got Facebook down the road, you've got 100,000 other companies that are looking for top talents there as well. So you find individuals jumping from company to company. So employee retention, you want to hold on to your knowledge workers. And that's, as I say, I don't have any hard facts in that. That's just anecdotal evidence from interaction with company. What is innovation? So, as I said, I have a really simple definition for innovation. I've done a lot of research in the area, and I think this is it. Like, innovation is the commercialization of an idea. So anybody can have ideas, and there's ideas coming from everywhere. I see representatives from ADAPT Research Centre in the audience, the research centres, etc. But unless you commercialize that idea, you're not going to. It's not really innovation. Businesses are about making money and profit, so it's about making money from ideas. 4 main areas in innovation. So product innovation, everybody's kind of familiar with. I'm going to take out my mobile phone, and everybody's familiar with product innovation around this. 10 years ago, what did it look like? Who owns kind of like a traditional old kind of like mobile phone from 10 years ago? Nobody. So that's a really easy one to understand. Services innovation is an interesting not new, it's been around a few years, but everything as a service. So we're all familiar with SaaS, software as a service. But we're entering in an era because of digitization and mobile, etc., where everything is becoming a service. So one nice example in Dublin, for example, is the Go car. We see, instead of having to own a car anymore, not that you really want to own a car, or not that you want to drive in Dublin, but that's besides the point. It's mobility as a service. So you can go outside, pick up a car, go from A to B, drop it. You don't have to worry about tax insurance. You don't have to worry about maintenance. So mobility is becoming a service. So we're seeing a lot of innovation in around X as a service. Then you have process innovation. Process innovation is pretty straightforward. If you work in manufacturing, you're making a product. What you want to do is make it faster, better, cheaper. And a lot of process innovation happening in Ireland. We're a high-cost economy. We have to do things faster, better, cheaper in manufacturing. And then the last one, which is really interesting, and it's, I don't know, I guess it's like associated with millennials, but it's the whole idea of the experience innovation. So younger people today, they don't own CDs, they don't own DVDs. We're talking even mobility. Maybe they won't own cars in the future. They have access to everything. So the whole idea is like they want to experience something as opposed to owning something. It's the whole idea of the sharing economy, so new business models, digitization, etc. I think a wonderful example of experience innovation is around the Wild Atlantic Way. So the infrastructure is always there. You got mountains, you got the Atlantic Ocean hasn't changed in millions of years. But what Tourism Ireland have done is they've wrapped a lovely marketing campaign around an amazing experience. When you see advertising for the Wild Atlantic Way, you just want to go there. See those mountains, see the sea. It's like, and if you read any of their publications, I spent time on the website yesterday, you just feel relaxed reading about the Wild Atlantic Way. And it's like, what you're reading about is the experience it's going to offer you. So it's like the whole idea of experience innovation is interesting. So why innovate? Multiple different reasons. You can go on I could go on forever, but you want to differentiate your product or service from your competitors. You want to outcompete, so that's pretty obvious as well. But new markets, especially, I think it's really relevant here today from a Brexit perspective. A lot of Irish companies and multinationals in Ireland are dependent on the British market. There's a lot of uncertainty around that at the moment. So we want to, so companies, I know Enterprise Ireland are pushing this hard, looking at new markets in terms of how companies can invest in new markets. IDA does have a new tool, a support. There's a grant there where if you're a multinational in Ireland and you're heavily dependent on the British market, there's a support there to kind of like do some due diligence, to do some market research on other markets as well. All right, I'll spend a really short time on this, but this is kind of like, I guess, when do you innovate? So the y-axis there, you see your revenue and product. Your x-axis, you have your version on time. So this is kind of like a typical, what they call the S-curve of innovation. And it's pretty easy to understand. So you have a new product, a new mobile phone, and you have your early adopters. So your early adopters are those guys, and if anybody does this, fair play, sits outside the Apple shop 24 hours before the new product is going to be launched. So you have the guys that are kind of like, okay, we're interested, we want to buy this. You release a product, you've got your first customers. After your first customers start buying, that hype and awareness, your marketing campaign kicks in, and you've got your growth spurt. So you've got basically your new product is being sold to the world. Once you reach kind of like the maturity point, then you can see kind of like it's starting to plateau off, and that's when they say you need to look at your innovation window. You need to kind of look at start of innovation, look at new features, new products, etc. Because your product doesn't have an infinite lifetime. Everything comes to an end. So this is your opportunity here for innovation. And I have here design thinking. I know Dennis at the IRDG have done fantastic work over the past few years in design thinking. Design thinking is bringing characteristics of designers and creative people into how businesses innovate. I did a course in this myself towards the end of last year, and it is absolutely a fantastic tool set to have for innovating. The whole idea, I guess, is, first of all, putting the customer at the center of innovation. So it's like if you're going to sell a product or service, you might have the best engineers in the world, you might have the best employees in your organization, and they could come up with really cool stuff. But actually, if they're coming up with cool stuff that your customers don't want to buy, why bother? So always, it's about engagement with your customer, empathizing with your customer. Once you understand and have what the problem is, define your problems, define what a potential solution looks like. And sitting around the table, you have multiple disciplines. You'll have your engineering team, you'll have your marketing team, you'll have your research group, etc. And you come up with ideas in terms of like, okay, what's our top 10 new products or services that we want to offer? And constantly engaging with the customer. Then you want a prototype. So we hear MVPs, minimal viable products. We hear all the different terminology in terms of creating something small, fail fast. So you don't want to create a full end-to-end solution and go like, look at here, this is what we've created. So in software engineering, it's the agile methodology, continuous development, etc. So bring the customer in. Here's our prototype. Shake it, kick it. Maybe you want it in a different color, and work with the customer through kind of like building out the full thing, and then obviously test. This is a whole kind of like study that you can undertake. Really interesting methodology, and you don't need to have deep understanding of the design thinking. It's just it's a process. So tech trends. I'm not going to get into any of the technologies, but I'll get into kind of like what we've seen over the past few years from an IDA perspective. And I know my colleague Chantal Kiernan is here somewhere today. She's the chief scientist in IDA, and Keith. The three of us have worked in different areas across the multinational landscape in Ireland. But we've looked at global megatrends, what the world is saying in terms of what are the trends. We'll read like the different publications that come from Deloitte or Frost & Sullivan, etc. But then our challenge is to kind of like understand then why Ireland, what's happening in Ireland that makes it attractive for companies to come here. So we've covered off areas, and I'll talk about it a bit more in depth in a second, but we've covered off areas about artificial intelligence. That was my life last year, understanding what's happening in Ireland and how to attract further companies into Ireland for AI. Internet of Things is still massive. We worked on a value proposition on that 2 years ago, so that went, I won't say it went viral, but we were very successful in terms of marketing campaigns. I traveled from San Francisco to Melbourne in 2016, speaking at conferences about Internet of Things in Ireland. Augmented virtual reality, digital transformation. I think it's a really interesting one, a topic of conversation for here today. You see life science companies, education companies, med tech companies. Technology is established in Ireland. We've got a lot of cool technology companies doing a lot of cool work here, but we have a lot of other industries that are moving into that area. So the whole idea of convergence, the adoption of technology by non-technology companies. So advanced manufacturing is a great example. Chantal has done a fantastic amount of work in that. If you need to speak to anybody, get in touch with IDA Enterprise Ireland. There's a lot of information about those areas, but also how you can get into them, and I'll talk about it in a little while. Collaborative innovation. So I've just moved into the whole space of collaborative innovation. That idea of design thinking, you bring not just your own company together, but you bring in multiple companies together, you bring in multiple disciplines. So somebody works in microelectronics, somebody works in software engineering, data analytics, and I know they're all technical disciplines, but then you bring in farmers, you bring in manufacturers, you bring in school teachers, you put them all together and you go like, okay, we need a solution. This is a problem. How do we fix this? So you're bringing lots of companies and lots of disciplines together to come up with interesting solutions. So that's collaborative innovation. Blockchain, very still massive. Well, I guess what's really interesting, cybersecurity as well, what's really interesting with all of these, so we've done individual, if you want, we've done individual value propositions for Ireland in these spaces. But what's happening now, we're on version 2.0 now of all of them. So we're seeing Internet of Things coming together with blockchain. So it's like, okay, how do we integrate these technologies together? So there's just some of the technologies that we're looking at from a global perspective, that we have a message for the world in terms of this is what's happening in Ireland. A ton of work has been put into this. If you want to find out more information, please get in touch. This is just a little bit of self-promotion, I guess. But we put a lot of work into the whole AI space last year. So we held a design-led workshop, design thinking workshop last May. We invited the thought leaders in Ireland, so from academia, industry. We had social innovators. We had the military were there, and we even had the unions. Because artificial intelligence, in the past week I've given 3 talks on artificial intelligence. And it's been described in different talks as the new water, the new electricity, and the new oil. It's going to affect every industry. Whether you see it coming or not, it will affect you. It's a really interesting space. And I think when I was driving to Dundalk a few months ago, and when I was listening to RTE radio on 11:30 in the morning, and they were having a conversation about AI. When you hear it being on mainstream radio, you're going like, okay, there's something going on here. There's a lot of talk happening at the moment. Last year we held this, we put a lot of work into developing the proposition for Ireland. We invited all these companies in. We asked them what's great about Ireland for AI. But we also asked industry, both Irish companies and multinationals, what do you need from us to succeed? What do you need from us to grow? And the number one request back was skills. Second was data. There was lots of, it was really, people were very generous with their time and information. But skills was number one. So in January, there was a lot of media around it, but we launched the first national masters in artificial intelligence in the world. So it's the first time where multiple institutions have come together to teach a master's in AI, but it's 100% funded by government as well through SkillsNet. So it's an interesting course if you're in an organization looking at artificial intelligence and you're looking at kind of like you want to train up staff. This will be it was launched this January. The course will be delivered from next January. This is just I don't know if anybody recognised to my left there. Is Barry O'Sullivan. He's the professor for the Insight Research Centre down in Cork. We were invited to go to the European Commission in Brussels in January to present on what's happening in Ireland from an industry perspective and an academic perspective. So we've got a great reputation in AI. If you're looking at that space, get in touch. Okay, so you're interested in innovation. You know what's going on. You want to, how many people here are involved directly in innovation at the moment? And how many people want to get involved that aren't involved but see an opportunity? Okay, so there's one. All right, well, we can talk afterwards, okay? Okay, so if you want to get involved in innovation, and even if you are involved and you kind of like think there's more opportunity, the agencies can provide information. Actually, it's really useful, and I know it's really useful because it always comes back to me, that line, we didn't know this was happening. So you have conversations with the IDA, or Enterprise Ireland, and Science Foundation Ireland. They can introduce you to the ecosystem. So a lot of the guys out here, whether they're research centres, whether they're technology centres, technology gateways, we have established connectivity with them. We know kind of sometimes what they're doing if it's not too deep and technical, but we have connectivity into them. We can introduce you to peer companies, research centres. So the training supports that are there as well. IDA, I know, has a training grant. I mentioned the AI, SkillsNet AI Masters, and then, of course, funding, the hard supports. So the hard supports are, again, from a multinational perspective, and apologies, this is the world I live in, but from the moment you have an idea till commercialization and that entire journey, there's something there for you. So we provide innovation partnerships that goes directly to academia research centres. If you're looking at kind of like blue sky thinking, if you're looking at brand new ideas coming out of research, if you're kind of going like, okay, this AI stuff, this Internet of Things stuff, like we're not involved in this world, but we'd like to get involved in it, but we've no idea where to start. There's a feasibility study that you can avail of. And it just allows you to put your toe in the water. If at the end of the feasibility study, which can last between 3 months and a year, you're going like, this makes no sense, that's okay. What we would like to see, obviously, is success for you. It's like, okay, we can do this project and we can bring this capability into our organization. And then the large scale one is RD&Is. So that means basically you're hiring people, okay, this Internet of Things is will work brilliantly for us. We can bring this centre of competence from the States or wherever, not from the States, but we can build it here in Ireland. As I said, Enterprise Ireland have their suite of supports as well, and Science Foundation Ireland as well. There are industry supports from Science Foundation Ireland. I'll go through this now. So this is an example of just a company that wants to spend 10 million on research in Ireland. So 10 million, 8 million of this company expenditure is in-house R&D. So you can get a grant of up to 10% or around 10% from IDA, so that's 800,000. 2 million is for collaborative research with research centres. So ADAPT, do you want to do a project with ADAPT? Do you want to spend 2 million? There's a grant available from Science Foundation Ireland that's up to 50%. So that's 1 million of that grant from Science Foundation. And these are up to, so just to set that expectation. Total agency grant can be 1.9 million or 1.8 million of the 10 million. And then, of course, there's 25% tax credit. So that's kind of an impressive number. So as a multinational, you want to spend 10 million, you're able to avail of incentives of 3.85 million. So there's good incentives to do research and development. And that's adding to the kind of like why Ireland story. Just maybe to put a little bit of that into context, the result. IDA had a 5-year plan winning strategy in 2015 to 2020. The objective was to achieve $3 billion of investment by multinationals into research and development in Ireland. We're at approximately 3.6 or 2.6, 2.65 3 years into the plan. There's a lot of investment happening into Ireland at the moment in research and development, and it's a really, really good story. Is that it? Oh yeah. Okay, so that's kind of like the Ireland picture. That's kind of like the funding that's available. Why do research? Just to talk a little bit about my new move. So everybody's familiar with Dunleary Harbour. The old ferry terminal there has been or will be converted and open in hopefully the beginning of August as the newest innovation campus in the country. There's a lot of good stuff happening in Ireland at the moment and a lot of co-working space. What we want to do here is, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Atlanta Tech Village, the Impact Hub in Geneva and SNCF in Paris, but they're truly innovative campuses or centres. So it's about collaborative working together, but we will be discrimination, I guess, positive discrimination with companies. We want to have innovation happening. So if you're a multinational and you want to immerse yourself with Irish companies in the innovation sector, come and have a chat. But the whole idea is actually that design thinking, working with kind of like multiple disciplines. And this is going to be home to up to 1,000 employees in Dunleary. So the building is due to be, hopefully everything goes according to plan, start work in 2 weeks. You get some artist impressions there of what's happening. Oh, let's go back. Areas, so this is going to come as no surprise to anybody that knows me. We will have focus areas in all the technologies that I mentioned. As I said earlier on, we've done a lot of work around AI, Internet of Things. These are going to be the application areas as well, and more. I don't want to be too prescriptive about what it looks like at the moment because we're putting that picture together. This is the first time I've presented anything on the Innovation Campus, but it will be about application areas using the technologies that I've spoken about before. And again, with support from different universities and colleges and centres around the state. So just to finish up, here's a little video.
The ferry terminal on St. Michael's Pier has been a familiar sight to both locals and visitors to Dunleary. It was once a busy gateway for foot passengers travelling to the UK. Today, it stands vacant. The time has come for a new beginning. As part of a redevelopment plan, the vacant ferry terminal will become the Harbour Innovation Campus. The space will be transformed into a beautifully designed, world-class workspace. A vital link will be established between the town and the harbour, bringing a new lease of life and vibrancy to a large area of the harbour. Dunleary is the perfect location for this centre of innovation. The Harbour Innovation Campus, linking the harbour to the town.
Obviously, that was very much Dunleary focused, but this is going to be, and I've already said it's IDA, an asset for Dunleary, for Dublin and for Ireland. There will be international links around the world, etc. So yeah, so if you're interested in anything I've said today, please feel free to get in touch. Ken at HIC, IDA Ireland at IDA. But also, if you want to tweet me, direct message me, Ken, or IDA Ken is my Twitter handle. We can talk about, I'm happy to talk about any of the supports that are available and the tech trends that we're seeing.